As the autumn leaves danced in the crisp air, Frodo's consciousness slowly returned in a room bathed in golden light. The soft whispers of waterfalls and distant elvish songs filled his ears. His wound from Weathertop still ached, but differently now. A cold memory, rather than the searing pain he remembered. Beside his bed sat Gandalf, smoke rings floating from his pipe, creating ethereal shapes that seemed to tell stories of their own. The wizard's eyes twinkled with relief as he recounted the desperate race to Rivendell, and how Lord Elrond's healing powers had saved Frodo from the Morgul Blade's dark magic. Through the ornate windows, the hobbit could see the magnificent valley of Imladris, where ancient buildings seemed to grow from the very cliffs, their architecture both impossibly delicate and eternally enduring. The days that followed were filled with joyous reunions. Bilbo, now showing his considerable age, embraced his nephew with tears in his eyes. The old hobbit spent hours in the library, working on his book, occasionally sharing tales with Frodo about his own adventures. Sam, meanwhile, found himself enchanted by the elven gardens, learning ancient growing secrets from the immortal gardeners. But beneath the serenity, tension grew. Mysterious figures began arriving at Rivendell. Proud elven lords, sturdy dwarves, and stern-faced men from distant lands. Frodo noticed the worried glances exchanged between Gandalf and Elrond during their long walks through the columned corridors. Something momentous was brewing, and the ring in his pocket seemed to grow heavier with each passing day. In the house of Elrond's healing wings, Frodo's strength gradually returned. The ethereal elven healers moved like whispers through the halls, their remedies working wonders not just on his wound, but on his troubled spirit. During one particularly peaceful evening, as the setting sun painted the valley in hues of purple and gold, Aragorn visited, bringing with him fragments of an ancient sword. The broken blade of Narsil lay on display, its shards still sharp enough to cut. As Frodo gazed upon this relic of a past age, he couldn't shake the feeling that its story was somehow intertwined with his own. That night, dreams of broken swords and dark riders plagued his sleep, while somewhere in the distance, the clear voices of elves sang songs of power and loss that seemed to echo from the very beginning of time. The crisp autumn air filled the circular courtyard as representatives from all free peoples of Middle-earth gathered at Elrond's summons. The morning sun cast long shadows through the ancient stone archways, while golden leaves danced on gentle breezes. Frodo, still weak from his wound, found himself seated among the most powerful beings he'd ever encountered. Gandalf's presence beside him offered little comfort as he observed the arriving dignitaries. Boromir, proud and tall, spoke of troubling dreams that had brought him to Rivendell. The Woodland Realm's messenger, Legolas, brought dire news of Gollum's escape. Glóin and his son Gimli revealed the dark messages from Mordor, seeking information about hobbits and rings. Silence fell as Frodo placed the ring upon the central stone pedestal. Sunlight seemed to dim, and a shadow passed over the council. Boromir's eyes gleamed with growing interest as the discussion unfolded, his voice rising with passion about using the ring against the enemy. Gandalf's thunderous response, speaking the black speech, darkened the sky and shook the very foundations of Rivendell. Elrond's face grew grave as he recounted the ring's history and the last alliance's failure. When Bilbo's part in the tale was revealed, several council members exchanged meaningful glances, finally understanding the full scope of their predicament. As debate raged about the ring's fate, Sam burst from the bushes, refusing to let Frodo face the danger alone. This unexpected interruption brought brief amusement to the tense gathering, but soon the gravity of the situation returned. Merry and Pippin, not to be outdone, emerged from their own hiding places, their loyalty outweighing their fear. The council watched in amazement as the small hobbits stood their ground. Elrond's eyes twinkled with both concern and admiration as he declared the number 9, 9 walkers against 9 riders. As the fellowship was chosen, a cold wind swept through Rivendell, and distant thunder rolled across the mountains. The quest to destroy the ring would begin, though none could foresee the trials ahead or who among them would live to see its end. As the fellowship began their ascent of Caradhras, the initially clear skies gave way to an unsettling darkness. Gandalf led the group through increasingly treacherous paths, while Aragorn and Boromir helped the hobbits navigate the deepening snow. The wind whispered ancient warnings through the crags, and Legolas, light-footed on the snow's surface, scouted ahead with keen elven eyes. The mountain's beauty was mesmerizing. Crystalline formations caught what little light remained, creating rainbow refractions across the white expanse. Yet beneath this splendor lurked a growing menace. Frodo noticed it first. The wind's whispers weren't natural at all, but rather carried hints of malevolent words. The storm struck with supernatural fury. Massive snowdrifts threatened to bury the company alive, while fierce winds tore at their cloaks and numbed their limbs. Boromir and Aragorn worked tirelessly to create a path through chest-high snow, their strength beginning to fade. The hobbits, nearly frozen despite being wrapped in spare cloaks, huddled together as Gandalf attempted to ward off the worst of the storm with his staff's warm glow. But even the wizard's powers seemed diminished against the mountain's wrath. Through the howling wind, Gimli's voice carried a grim suggestion. The mines of Moria might offer a safer passage, though his tone suggested he feared that route as well. As lightning split the sky and thunder shook the mountain, a cascade of rocks and snow nearly sealed their fate. Legolas's keen ears caught the sound of fell voices on the wind. This was no natural storm, but the work of dark powers. The Fellowship retreated to a small hollow, where Gandalf called for a decision that would change their journey forever. Each face reflected the gravity of their choice: brave the mines of Moria, or risk death on the mountain's slopes. Frodo, bearing the burden of the final decision, looked into each companion's eyes. The mountain had defeated them, but what awaited below might prove far worse. As they began their descent, the storm suddenly lessened, as if the mountain itself laughed at their retreat. Standing before the towering walls of Moria, the Fellowship found themselves trapped between the threatening waters of the Black Lake and the sealed doors of the ancient dwarven kingdom. As Gandalf worked to solve the riddle of the moonlit gate, tension grew with each passing moment. Frodo watched nervously as ripples disturbed the lake's surface, while Merry and Pippin mindlessly tossed stones into the dark waters. A sudden revelation about the simple password, friend, briefly lightened the mood, but their relief was short-lived. As the doors slowly opened, tentacles burst from the water, wrapping around Frodo's ankle. The Watcher in the water had awakened, forcing the Fellowship to flee into the very darkness they had hoped to avoid, as the entrance collapsed behind them, sealing their fate. Their journey through the vast halls of Khazad-dûm revealed a magnificent yet haunting realm. Gandalf's staff illuminated endless columns stretching into the darkness above, while ancient dwarven carvings told tales of forgotten glory. The discovery of Balin's tomb brought grief to Gimli and revealed the fate of the dwarven colony. But it was Pippin's curiosity that sealed their doom. A single dropped stone into a well, followed by the hollow sounds of something ancient stirring below. The drums began. Boom, boom. The Fellowship prepared for battle as orc cries echoed through the halls, and somewhere in the depths, something far more terrifying awakened. The bridge of Khazad-dûm became their final stand. After fleeing through countless halls from an overwhelming force of orcs, the Fellowship faced their greatest terror. The Balrog emerged from the shadows, a creature of nightmare, wreathed in shadow and flame. Gandalf stood alone on the narrow bridge, his small figure defiant against the ancient demon. His commanding voice echoed, "You shall not pass." The clash that followed would be forever etched in the Fellowship's memory. As the bridge cracked and the Balrog fell, victory seemed within grasp. But a final crack of the demon's whip dragged Gandalf into the abyss with the haunting words, "Fly, you fools." The Fellowship fled into daylight, their hearts heavy with loss, while Frodo's cries of anguish echoed through the halls of Moria. The Fellowship emerges from the darkness of Moria with heavy hearts, their grief for Gandalf raw and consuming. Aragorn leads them through the rocky terrain toward the woods of Lothlorien, while Frodo notices Sam silently wiping away tears. The hobbits huddle together during brief rests, sharing whispered memories of the wizard's fireworks and kind smiles. Yet danger allows no time for proper mourning. Strange cries echo in the distance, and Legolas's keen eyes spot shadows moving against the horizon. The group quickens their pace as darkness falls, knowing that the mountains behind them harbor more than just memories. The ancient woods of Lothlorien welcome them with whispers of leaves and shifting golden light. Lady Galadriel and Lord Celeborn receive the fellowship in their ethereal treetop realm, where time seems to flow differently. The travelers find themselves wrapped in a dreamlike peace, though Boromir appears unsettled by the lady's penetrating gaze. In this enchanted forest, they rest in flets high among the Malorn trees, while ethereal elven songs drift through the branches. Yet even here, Frodo cannot escape the weight of his burden, and during one sleepless night, he witnesses Galadriel's test at her mirror, revealing both hopes and terrible possibilities. Before their departure, each member of the Fellowship receives gifts from the Lady of the Wood. Sam's eyes shine at his box of earth from Galadriel's garden, while Frodo clutches the crystal phial containing the light of Arundel's star. As they prepare to leave this haven, an unease settles over the group. Boromir's gaze increasingly strays toward Frodo, and the ring's whispers grow louder in the quiet moments. Loading their new elven boats with supplies, they bid farewell to the Golden Woods. The River Anduin awaits them, its waters promising to carry them south, though whether to hope or doom, none can say. As they paddle away from Lothlorien's shores, Frodo glances back to see Galadriel raising her hand in farewell, her ring glinting with an inner fire that seems to echo the burden he carries. As dawn broke over Lothlorien, its golden leaves shimmering with the last remnants of morning dew, the Fellowship prepared for their departure. Lady Galadriel presented them with gifts of immeasurable value, elven cloaks that seemed to shift with the colors of nature, Lemba's bread wrapped in Malorn leaves, and personal tokens that would prove vital in the days to come. Frodo clutched the crystal phial containing the light of Arundel's star, its radiance somehow both comforting and foreboding. The lady's final words echoed in their minds as they boarded the elegant gray boats, their hearts heavy with both hope and uncertainty. The elven boats, crafted with ancient wisdom, carried them smoothly onto the great river Anduin, leaving behind the safety of the Golden Woods. The days on the river brought both peace and growing unease. Aragorn guided their boats with practiced skill, while Boromir's gaze increasingly strayed to Frodo with an unsettling intensity. The hobbits noticed dark shapes moving along the eastern shore, and Legolas's keen eyes confirmed their worst fears. They were being tracked. At night, Gollum's luminous eyes could be seen, floating like pale lamps in the darkness, following their boats on a log. Sam's worried glances at his master grew more frequent, as did the whispered conversations between Aragorn and Boromir. The river's song, once soothing, now seemed to carry warnings of approaching danger. Strange bird calls echoed across the water, and even Gimli's usually steady demeanor showed signs of concern. The thundering sound of the rapids at Sarngabir brought their first real challenge on the water. After a near-disastrous attempt to navigate the treacherous waters in darkness, the Fellowship was forced to portage their boats along the shore. The shadow of the Argonath loomed ahead, massive stone kings standing sentinel over the river. As they approached these ancient monuments, the tension within the group reached its peak. Boromir's internal struggle became increasingly visible, his noble features twisted with inner conflict. Frodo felt the weight of the ring growing heavier with each passing mile, and the time for a crucial decision drew near. The question hung heavy in the air. Should they turn east toward Mordor or west to Minas Tirith? The answer would soon tear the Fellowship apart in ways none could foresee. The golden afternoon sun filtered through the dense canopy as the Fellowship rested on the western shore of the Anduin. Boromir's troubled eyes kept darting toward Frodo, who sat alone, lost in contemplation. The weight of decisions hung heavy in the air, mixing with the sweet scent of riverside flowers and ancient trees. Sam busied himself with cooking, but his worried glances toward his master betrayed the growing tension. The others scattered nearby, their voices hushed, discussing their next move. Should they turn east toward Mordor or west to Minas Tirith? As shadows lengthened, Frodo slipped away into the woods, seeking solitude to clear his thoughts. Boromir, after a moment's hesitation, followed silently. The confrontation erupted like a sudden storm. Boromir's desperate pleas echoed through the forest, his noble intentions twisted by the ring's influence. Frodo's heart raced as he fled, the world becoming a blur of green and brown. Meanwhile, the others realized something was amiss. Merry and Pippin's cheerful banter died as horn blasts shattered the forest's peace. Aragorn's command sent them scrambling, but chaos had already taken hold. The woods suddenly swarmed with Uruk-hai, their heavy boots thundering against the earth. Legolas's bow sang, and Gimli's axe flashed in the filtered sunlight, but the enemy's numbers seemed endless. The fellowship splintered like scattered leaves in a gale. Frodo watched from hiding as Boromir fell defending Merry and Pippin, redemption bought with his last breath. The proud warrior of Gondor's final words to Aragorn carried both regret and hope. As Frodo pushed a small boat into the river, Sam's splashing footsteps behind him brought tears to his eyes, his dearest friend refusing to let him go alone. Across the water, Aragorn made his choice. Frodo's quest would continue in secret, while they would hunt for their captured companions. The last glimpse of the two hobbits showed them disappearing into the eastern shore's mists, while the remaining hunters turned to follow the Uruk-hai's trail westward. The Fellowship of the Ring had ended, but the bonds forged would echo through the days to come.